Mike, I don't know if you've seen this. This is a challenge coin from the American Warrior Society.
You mean like that on my arm right there? I'm sorry.
There's a rumor
Sorry,
going
Rich
around
Brown. Can you show your tattoo live on live stream?
my
Living
Marine Corps
stream?
tattoos. Hold on.
No, how about the company you own? Do you own the Marine Corps? We own the
Uh,
American Warrior Society, folks. I'm not sure if you know that or not, Rich Brown, but you're supposed to have a tattoo like that right
I
there.
didn't get that memo.
Yeah. I thought you were going to get one a long time ago, man.
Well, the
You
rumor
talked
is you
about it.
got the tattoo because you lost your coin. That's the
Really?
rumor.
Is that the rumor? Who started that rumor? Are we live or what, man?
We're live. We got 11 folks watching us already, Mr. Seeklander.
Oh my gosh. I'm just playing with my Mountain Man medical kit here. This is actually a great kit. All right, dude. Are you going to kick it off and say good morning to our esteemed coined members who are probably jumping on? Good morning, coined members. How's my audio, Rich? Is my audio good?
Your audio is much better. I think everyone would agree with that.
Outstanding.
Good morning and welcome to American Warrior Show, Friday edition. Today's December the 31st. Today is New Year's Eve, Mike.
I know. Can you believe that? The end of 2021 is here today. I hope that's a good thing. 2021, a lot of weird things in the world, but I hope you, if you're watching this right now or listening, I hope you have some good memories. I do. It wasn't a bad year. Rich and I did a lot of traveling together and teaching, and man, but it's weird. It's so weird that 2021 is over. It's hard to believe. 2022, 2022.
I thought we'd be flying in, cars and stuff like that in the stratosphere. It didn't happen.
I know. Hey, speaking of travel, guess who I just saw jump on? Mr. Todd Orr, Grizzly Bear Todd Orr is on. That's crazy.
I know, man. You need to get back to Montana and do some more hiking with him.
Oh well, let's do it. Hey Todd, type in the comments where you bought another place. Tell Rich where you bought another place.
I can't wait. John Shriver is on. Tina is on. Our good friend out there in Montana, Will Parker, is on.
Good
Tony
morning,
is
folks.
on. Gary, James, man, lots of folks joining us. Please like and hit that share button. We got a kind of an interesting show for you today. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm just going to quiz the crap out of Mr. Seeklander. But before we do, Mike, let's pay for the show, man.
Let's do it. Let's talk about sponsors. Let me out of the gate, Rich. I just want to show this one more time because you don't have one yet, right? You don't have one of these beautiful stars and stripes, Kydex decorated holsters. This is the Seeklander signature line. If you don't have one, gift yourself the beautiful Seeklander signature line. This one is made by Precision Holsters. Of course, that's one of our show sponsors, precisionholsters.com/Seeklander. You can go to that webpage and check out the signature line that I'm holding that Rich doesn't have. We'll get you one, Rich, soon.
Let's say Todd, the Grizzly Bear, or if you don't know who that is, of course, Todd is famous for having survived 2 grizzly bear maulings in the same day. He says St. George, Utah, some great desert hiking and dirt biking. Wow.
Yeah, the Todd has invited me down there, Rich. I don't think he's invited you down there.
I think he likes me more than he does. You just happens to be related to you.
Right. Not. All right, here's next. Rich, talk about this kit. Tell them what I'm holding in front of the beautiful camera here. What is this, man?
Mr. Mike Seeklander is holding for your viewing pleasure this morning the co-branded trauma kit from Mountain Man Medical. And I'm going to tell you, every single thing in there is not some Chinese knockoff piece of crap. It is tried and true, tested, TCCC approved. That's all the technology coming out of the GWAT, the Global War on Terror, has made Mountain Man Medical. And Brian McLaughlin over there, a former Navy corpsman who fought in Afghanistan with the Marines, we have put together an amazing trauma kit that has been blessed off by him. And for the price of what it takes to take your family to dinner, you can have a trauma kit that's going to keep them safe for years to come.
Yeah, folks, and if you're a Quinn member, this is branded by us. Of course, it has the American Warrior Society patch on it. Everything in this kit is laid out in a very simple manner. It's clean. You open it up. Everything you're going to need is right there in the beginning. The gloves are on the outside. The shears, if you have to cut clothing off or whatever. So it's a really well-designed and affordable kit. So if you don't have one, you should have one of these probably in or around your range bag. You absolutely should have one of these in your vehicle. You should have one of these in your spouse's vehicle. If you don't, not trying to promote this. If you want to buy a different kit or the non-American Warrior Society branded kit, that's fine. But seriously, this is pretty darn important. So you should have one in your vehicles and in your home for sure.
Let's also talk about one of the sponsors we very rarely do, and I don't know why, but the American Warrior Society, man. There's the beautiful coin of the American Warrior Society, and I've made it real easy for you this morning. Click on the link at the top. Most of the people joining us this morning are already coin members, but you're probably going to share this content, and somebody's going to see it, and they're going to go, what the heck is the American Warrior Society?
Yeah, man. And last but not least, we have a couple other sponsors. If you were on the Wednesday show, you saw me demonstrating some of the techniques we were talking about with the Coolfire trainer. Ammo prices, Rich, are finally coming back down to an extent. But if you can't afford ammo and you're not finding ammo and you want to find a way to amp up your dry fire, check out the Coolfire. If you go to coolfiretrainer.com, you can check them out. And like I said, a video is worth 1,000 words. So the very best thing I could tell you to do is to go back to the live stream we did on Wednesday, where I was talking about the one-handed structure, and I gave some, I think, pretty good tips on the one-handed shooting structure. And I actually show the kit. It's pretty simple. You take your handgun, you drop your barrel out, your recoil spring out, you put the Coolfire trainer barrel and recoil spring in, and fill it with compressed CO2, and you get recoil. You get a device that is basically like shooting a live handgun with no ammo expense. So pretty awesome.
Yeah, and also, I'm looking at Bob right now. He used to be over here, but I've moved him. I've got to set up a striking area over here with my kick shields and stuff. So Bob is menacingly staring at me this morning. But you want to tell us about the body opponent bag, Mike?
Man, body opponent bag made by Century Martial Arts. So here's the story on the Bob was I owned several Bobs over the years. I've wore a couple out. I basically kicked them to the point where they get softer, and they're really, really great tools. But anyways, Century approached me. This is probably 3 or 4 years ago, right, Rich? Yeah. And said, hey, you are promoting these Bobs. We want to give you some more, but more importantly, we want you to go shoot Bob. We want you to get on the range and actually shoot Bob and show folks that Bob can be used for both striking practice and all these combatives, but also if you happen to have one on the range, he's a perfect 3D target because he's literally shaped, and he kind of looks like me with, he's not as pretty as I am, but he kind of looks like me. But the point is, there's a big difference between shooting a paper target that's flat versus a 3D target. So for example, with my Bob, I could shoot him straight on, but I can also turn him at angles with students and teach students, hey, if you're going to take a shot, or if you had to take a defensive shot from this angle in the body or head, where would you aim, or how would you aim to accomplish that? So Bob is pretty impressive. We talked about this in the last show, Rich. Man, why get on an elliptical or a bike or something if you're doing your cardio? Why not get a Bob and work through a good strike routine? Matter of fact, if you want a strike routine, there's an entire strike routine and weapon strike routine in the American Warrior Society coin member vault. But anyways, Bob is a great tool. I love my Bob.
Yeah. And Tony points out the fact that Bob has more hair than you do, Mike.
Like I said, Bob is not quite as attractive as I am. So.
All right. I think we paid for the show this morning, Mike. Let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to read your bio real quick. Currently, Mike Seeklander is the owner of Shooting Performance LLC, a full-service training company, and the American Warrior Society. Mike is also the co-host of The Best Defense, the Outdoor Channel's leading firearms instructional show. Previously, Mike was the Chief Operations Officer, Director of Training, and Senior Instructor at the United States Shooting Academy in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was directly responsible for the development of all USSA training programs. Prior to that, as an employee of the federal government, Mike has served as a branch chief and lead instructor for the Firearms Division of the Federal Air Marshal Service, as well as a senior instructor at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, FLETC. He has extensive formal training and experience in all phases of military and law enforcement training. Mike is a highly sought-after tactical and competitive trainer and a high-level performer on the competitive handgun circuit. Currently a nationally ranked competitor on the practical handgun competition circuit, Seeklander has authored, produced instructional books, DVDs, and has developed hundreds of lesson plans specifically related to basic and advanced firearms training. As a local law enforcement officer with the Knox County Sheriff's Department, as well as the Knoxville Police Department, Mike worked in corrections as well as patrol and with the Organized Crime Division. In 1990, Mike joined the United States Marine Corps and was trained as an intelligence specialist, which is still shocking, folks, with a top secret clearance. Mike is a combat veteran of Desert Shield, Desert Storm, which is also known as Gulf War I. He holds secondary MOSs of combat engineer and primary marksmanship instructor. Mike is a recipient of numerous awards and honors in the law enforcement community, as well as a professional shooter. Shooting accomplishments are too numerous to list. Having competed in the shooting sports nationally, Mike adds to this experience with more than 15 years of experience in various martial arts, holding multiple ranks, including a black belt in Oakland freestyle. Mike, welcome to your show.
Hey, good morning, folks. And if you heard my bio before, if you're a Coin member or one of our members, I apologize. I didn't know Rich was going to go into my bio. But I think it's, if you're listening to this podcast somewhere else or maybe watching it and don't know me, I don't know, maybe I can't hold a job. It sounds like that, Rich. I can't hold a job. By the way, my mother is on. Good morning, Mom. How are you? And
morning, Mom.
A couple other folks on. I see two comments about the best defense. In the intro show, of course, for the American Warrior show, we talk about Mike Seeklander, the co-host of Best Defense. The Best Defense is no longer running, Jared. It hasn't been running for 2 years now, unfortunately. If you want it to run again, send an email to the Outdoor Channel. I actually just pulled up a bunch of the old Best Defense episodes. I think I was on for 7 or 8 seasons of the Best Defense. And for whatever reason, that network decided to cancel the award-winning show, probably the most popular show on the network, one of the most, and replace it with more hunting and fishing shows. Doesn't make any sense to me, Rich, especially in a time where self-defense is so important. By the way, folks, before I know Rich is going to throw me some questions, we talked about some questions in the pre-show. Do us a favor, click that share button, share this to a couple groups. I know all of you always do that, and I always ask that. But I would love to hit 100. That's been my goal for a while. If you're listening on the podcast later on, if you have the ability to share the podcast, please do so. If you're not live on Facebook right now, we would love that. I know you're probably listening because we turn these into podcast shows as well. But hey, share the podcast, please. Tell some folks about it and help us get some listener and viewerships up if we would. Mr. Rich Brown is muted like always. What a surprise.
Well, you know what? Thank you for bringing that up, Mike. I do that for you.
Yeah. Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. So I really wanted to talk about PCC for self-defense carbine. I get asked this question quite often, and a friend of mine was up here recently, and he bought a really short, actually it was a pistol, and then put a suppressor on it. And I mean, it is just an amazing tool because this particular person lives on a boat. He shall remain nameless. And it's a great tool to move around his boat and protect his stuff. So tell us about that, Mike. Is that a good idea?
So so in the pre-show, I actually saw this question. So I went out to my gun safe and I grabbed I have a couple different guns. I'll try to stay close to the microphone. And I know this doesn't have an optic on it. I took the optic off and put it on a different rifle that I just got. But this is technically a pistol as well. This is a pistol caliber pistol, PCC, pistol caliber carbine pistol, because of course it has a barrel length that is shorter than the whatever it is, 14.7 welded comp required length for NFA. But the point is, so why choose a gun, like this versus, let's say this rifle was, I'm not sure if you can see on my camera, was unsuppressed, right? So why choose a pistol caliber versus a standard rifle for home defense or whatever else? And here's the bottom line. That particular rifle, if I didn't have the Whisper suppressor on, that's a Wilson Combat Whisper suppressor, is insanely loud, Rich, as you know. I mean, we've shot together, on the range lots of different times, taught classes together. You actually ran that rifle a couple times in a couple different classes. But imagine that bump in the night where you decide to grab your home defense rifle instead of a home defense pistol, and your family members start to come out of their rooms, and there is truly an intruder in your house, and you decide to take a couple shots, and boy, you're taking shots. You have to engage for whatever reason. Man, I tell you, I know that hearing damage is probably not that critical compared to losing your life. But the point is, if you're going to suffer hearing damage, your family members are, especially if they're to the side of that comp, if you have a comp, it doesn't matter what kind of muzzle brake or comp you have, it's still going to be insanely loud. And more importantly, they're not going to be able to hear or maybe respond to your commands after that. If you're trying to tell them, hey, seek cover, go outside, get in the car, call 911, whatever they may not be able to respond to that because they can't hear anything. And I think that's a key part of the communication. So a pistol caliber carbine, or a carbine that, 9mm caliber or whatever, typically it's going to be 9mm, is still loud, but I can shoot my PCCs on the range with no hearing protection and still hear. And I'm not advocating that you do that, but the point is, you can engage. The second, maybe idea would be, Rich, you carry a Glock on a regular basis. Well, let's say you buy a Wilson Combat AR-9 similar to this, or an AR-9 pistol. You could run the same ammo, the same magazines in the PCC. And last but not least, I'll throw the training value out there. I shoot on steel a lot, but I have a couple of really great steel targets made by Wilson Combat. I'm sponsored by Wilson Combat, folks. You know that, but I can, if I'm shooting my rifle or practicing with a rifle, I need to have a standoff distance of 50 yards plus to be on steel. Well, with my PCC, if I want to run some acquisition or transition drills or movement drills, I can shoot on steel with a PCC or PCC pistol because it's pistol caliber. So I can ring the steel and do different things with it. So there are a lot of advantages of potentially setting up a PCC for a home defense, or in the case of your good buddy, a boat defense type firearm.
Yeah, those are good stuff. So you've given us a lot to think about in terms of the pros of it. Are there any significant downsides to running a PCC for home defense?
Well, so I would say the only downside is, if you're going to grab a rifle for home defense, or a long gun for home defense, you're doing it because it's easier to shoot, it holds more ammo, and it has better ballistics than a handgun. That's the bottom line. I mean, that's why our U.S. military right now, wherever they are and whatever they're doing, they're shooting rifles instead of handguns. The handgun is a transition or a backup type weapon, because the bottom line is that rifle caliber has much better ballistics. It's going to stop a person a lot faster than a handgun caliber. So I would say, if there's any downside, Rich, it would be the downside that 9mm or whatever else pistol caliber doesn't have the same terminal ballistic stopping power as the rifle. So,
okay, good point. Good point. As far as you mentioned, NFA items like suppressors and stuff like that as being probably not necessarily a bad choice. You actually talked a lot about how running a suppressor on your defensive firearm could be a good thing. Are there any downsides to that as well?
No, I mean, let me pull this up for the video. If you're listening, I apologize, but I'm going to pull up my Wilson Combat. This is one of my ARs. I'm going to take the suppressor off. This is a Wilson Combat Whisper suppressor. They have a different variant now, or a newer suppressor, but I kind of want to show this off just a little bit. First of all, Rich, I'll give a personal opinion. The fact that a suppressor is an NFA item or a controlled item is stupid. A lot of folks, if you're listening or maybe new to the American Warrior Show, people call these silencers. They don't silence anything, right? They're suppressors. They suppress the sound, generally speaking, in a rifle. And the fact that you have to do additional paperwork to suppress the sound to make a gun quieter when you're shooting it is foolish, because when you shoot, obviously a supersonic round, you get the supersonic crack. I can shoot this without earmuffs as well, but it's a pretty loud crack. It still kind of hurts my ears to an extent, but I could absolutely grab this as a home defense, or in this case, this particular rifle is my vehicle defense gun. It's in my vehicle pretty much full time. And without putting on earmuffs, I could shoot this in, outside or inside a home or a room, and not damage my ears too much, or not damage the ears of the people around me. Also, all of the gas is pretty much contained, so it's not spitting a bunch of gas and flame out the side of whatever muzzle brake you might have. So I think a suppressor on a home defense type weapon, or a firearm, or a vehicle defense type firearm is probably a good option. Now, Rich, I think your question was, is there a downside? Not really. Be aware that when you put a suppressor on a rifle, if you don't own one, it may change how the gun runs because of course we're talking about piston gas systems in the AR. So it may change how it runs. You may opt for an adjustable gas system, which I have adjustable gas systems on all of my Wilson Combat rifles. So I can gas the guns up or gas the guns down based on what I'm running, suppressor or non-suppressed. If you're training with a suppressor and it's the first time you've shot one, maybe extensively, be aware that after a 30 or 40 round drill, that suppressor is going to be pretty hot. So I remember making the mistake of doing a transition with a suppressed rifle after a 30 or 40 round drill and going to the handgun and then realizing the suppressor was frying my leg. So just be aware of that. But they're not, other than that, Rich, the fact that you got to pay extra money to get one and do some paperwork is foolish in my mind. That's the good old ATF. But the bottom line is there are not really a lot of downsides.
When you were showing a moment ago, Mike, when you were showing your PCC, someone asked the question, is there an MOA dot that you prefer for home defense?
Yeah, good question. So almost all of my rifles or long guns now have this Holosun optic on it. If you can't see it, I'm holding up a Holosun. This is the Holosun 510C. This one is the GR, which means it has the green dot. And for those listening and also viewing right now, on the Holosun optics, much like the old EOTechs, they have a reticle that you can select between the big circle, which I don't know what the big circle is, Rich. Maybe that is 10 MOA, 15 MOA. And then, of course, the small dot in the center, which I think is probably 1.5 or 2 MOA. And you can have either the dot or the circle and the dot. I run the circle and the dot on all my long guns because it helps me find the reticle faster when I'm doing a mount. But I can also use the precise small dot if I need to for a very hard shot, like a headshot or whatever else. But I have the big reticle for fast acquisitions. So I think the answer is probably for a long gun, a very bright, shake awake, small, bright dot is my preference. For handgun, I probably would recommend, like we talked about this last Wednesday, a little bit larger dot, like maybe a 5 or 6 MOA is probably going to be faster. Although I'll tell you, as you know, in my Delta Point Pros, I run a 2.5 minute dot.
Mm-hmm. And Tony wants to know, what is the battery life on the 510? Do you know?
Man, good question, Tony. These particular optics, like when I bought 2 Holosuns a long time ago. And by the way, folks, I'm not sponsored by Holosun. You could tell them they did send me a couple optics years ago, but they don't really give me much but a discount. But I bought a red reticle and a green reticle Holosun, and I put them on 2 PCs, and I ran them. I ran them for a whole year plus. I think I just changed the battery out on that one. It finally started blinking 2 years later. So the battery life is absolutely outstanding. And the way those things work is, depending on what setting you have, the solar panels on those optics, if I understand it correctly, don't charge the optics. But what they do is the optic uses the solar power if you're outside and the sun's out versus the battery while you're shooting. So it helps lengthen the battery life. So it's pretty impressive. Hey, by the way, folks, if you're just jumping on, welcome to the American Warrior Show as well as our live stream. Rich and I have a goal in this New Year's Eve of hitting 100 live viewers, Rich. I think we could do it. What if we sit here and didn't talk about anything and just said, share? Think that would be good.
Pretty boring.
By the way, if you're listening on the podcast later, I know you can't share it, but you can share a podcast. Hey, folks, if you're live on Facebook, please give us a share. I mean, I would love. We hit 80 something the other day. Didn't we hit like 80, Rich?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we didn't hit 100 though. I want to hit 100. I don't know. Sorry, that's my goal. I used to be able to hit 150 all the time. Go for it. Share. Click share.
Thank you, Zuckerberg. Matt wants to know, what is your opinion on the Mossberg Shockwave or the Remington TAC 14 for home defense?
Man, I tell you, I'm not familiar with the Remington TAC 14. I have heard about the Shockwave. In terms of home defense, I think all those tools are fine. Let me full disclosure on home defense. I'm going to answer the question this way: if you ask Mike Seeklander what his primary home defense firearm is, it's a handgun. They're higher capacity. In most cases, although the one I have in one of my safes is not optic sighted, the higher capacity, optic sighted, flashlight mounted handguns. They're full size. They're the ones that are the biggest and easiest for me to shoot. I would love to say that I have exactly the same handgun in every safe. I don't, but I would tell you, if you're listening, you should have a quick access safe in 3 or 4 of the rooms at your house, unless you carry a handgun all the time. I have one right here near my desk. And I have 2 in my bedroom that are quick access, one on my wife's side of the bed and one on my side of the bed. They're both quick access safe. I'm not a big fan of just laying a gun out there, putting the gun in a drawer. And a lot of folks I just put it on the nightstand. Good for you, man. If you have kids or those kids have friends or whatever else, I think that could be an issue potentially. But my home defense system is a handgun. Why so? Well, because a rifle for most people, unless you spend a lot of time training, Rich, it's easier to shoot on a flat range. It holds more rounds, and I believe and get all that. But it's also harder to manipulate around corners and doorways and hallways, and it's harder to defend. A handgun, I can take one hand off the handgun and defend it pretty effectively. If you didn't watch the live stream we did 3 weeks ago, we talked about distance considerations at length. And think about, a lot of folks also ask, not to get long-winded, Rich, but well, what about a rifle in a backpack and as a backpack? And I'm like, why? Okay, I get that, or maybe a short PCC. It sounds cool, but I could do things with a handgun, a full-size optic-sighted lit handgun. When I say lit, a weapon light on it. I can do as much with it as I can do with a PCC or a rifle, but I can also defend it better. I can shoot it with one hand. I can pick up my kid if they're injured. I can do a lot of things with one hand that I can't do with a PCC or a rifle. So I'm not sure if that's a good answer or not, but think about what you're selecting in terms of your home defense tool.
Yeah, great point. Jared says a Shockwave with a red dot is a legit truck gun. The only thing I see, because whether it's the Shockwave or the Remington TAC 14, I think the TAC 14 is like an 870, and the Shockwave is nothing more than maybe like a 590 or a 500 Mossberg. Really, but the fact that they don't have anything you can shoulder has always been a little bit of a problem. But of course, we're trying to get around certain laws. I want to ask the next question, Mike. Muzzle strikes. We're talking about defensive context here this morning, folks. Mike's been talking about some of the things that he likes with his home defense firearms. What about muzzle strikes?
That's a great question, man. So there's one of our show sponsors is Century. They make the Bob, the body opponent bag. One of the things that we did with Century was shoot a free instructional series, right? If you're a Quinn member, it's in the members vault. You can watch it, but you can also watch it by going to the Century link and opting in, and you can watch those videos that I teach about muzzle striking with a handgun, contact distance shooting, and muzzle striking with a rifle. And you may say, if you're listening or watching, well, Mike, why would we consider doing a muzzle strike? And there are really two reasons. Number one, because you can't shoot because your gun has malfunctioned, or there's a family member or a friend or a teammate in play that you can't locate, right? So you're in a very, very obviously it's a close range fight with someone. It's a contact distance fight. And you can't shoot because those two reasons. Gun doesn't work. It's malfunction for whatever reason. Didn't work. You wanted to shoot, but you couldn't shoot. Or your friend, teammate, or whatever else, or family member is in an area somewhere and you're not sure where they are. Well, in that case, let's use that firearm as a hammer or tool. Rich, we talk about, got my SIR pistol. We talk about once we run empty, after that last magazine, we always look for that next magazine. But once it's truly empty, this becomes a hammer. Right now I have a hammer in my hand if I'm at a distance where it might be appropriate to use it. If you're fighting with a handgun, maybe that's the case. The second reason you might do a muzzle strike is, you choose to because you could shoot and there's no family members, there are no teammates in and around your area, but you don't want to shoot the person, Rich. I mean, you personally, if I remember correctly, in Desert Storm, had a bunch of folks coming after you wanting food and did a pretty, I think, decent muzzle strike to a person that you probably could have shot.
But you don't want to because they're just starving Kuwaitis, man. But
right.
there's dozens, if not hundreds of them, and you got to get them off of you, man. So
yeah, absolutely. By the way, I see a couple of the viewers, Linda and someone else shared. Thank you for sharing. If you're just jumping on, of course, my name is Mike Seeklander. And this is my co-host and good buddy, Rich Brown. This is the American Warrior Show live stream that we're doing on Friday that Rich called me in because I guess he didn't have a better guest. Is that why?
Yeah, fresh out of good guess.
Fresh out of good guess. Yeah, okay. Did we hit 100 yet, man? I don't get that. I think Zuckerberg is like in a room right now, computer room, and he's got like a little meter, and he's adjusting. He's like, nah, I'm gonna hover them down around 49, right?
Yeah, we hit 50 a second ago.
Yeah.
So muzzle strikes, yeah, that's a great explanation. People sometimes poo-poo on them, but I think that contextually they definitely have a place. It's a very small, narrow window where it's appropriate, but there is a place for them. I'll promise you that. Mike, how are you personally preparing for 2022. It'll be here tomorrow morning, all the way up to the upcoming presidential election in 2024.
Man, that's a great question. So, for me, Rich, as you know, I mean, I'm an active sponsored shooter, so my season is typically revolves around preparing to compete in a match. Of course, we also have the American Warrior Study. I spend lots of time doing defensive stuff. My week is broken into a very even routine of shooting training, physical training, jiu-jitsu training. But I tell you, I'll give you a few things that I'm thinking about for 2022. Number one, every time I go to the range, I want to go with a plan, right? I at my shooting level, I tend to get lazy and go to the range without a good plan. So what I mean by a plan is that doesn't mean I may follow an exact specific set of drills, but what that means is when I go to the range, I want to go to the range with a theme in mind. And I'll do one or two different practice sessions. Number one would be a theme. So for example, let's say this week's theme is movement. So when instead of me just drawing and standing and shooting a handgun, every time I draw, I'm going to be working through a series of movements. It may be a direct pivot, a rear stepping pivot, a step to the left, a step to the right, shooting on a draw to shooting on the move. It might be a short movement. It might be a long movement. If you're an ACSS member, you're familiar with all these things in the programs. But I'm going to utilize either a theme, or I'm going to use what I call a multi-stage practice session. So a multi-stage practice session, let's say, Rich, I'm getting ready for the IDPA or USPSA nationals. So I will do a series of drills that all equate to the things that I would see on a stage. And it might be that moving draw process. Then I might work strong, support hand a little bit. Then I might go into ports, so if I have a VTAC type barricade, so I might move into ports. So I'm moving low and moving high and working on that, what we call the upper body triangle. And I do a series of about 7 drills in a drill practice session. So that's one goal, is to go to the range with a plan. By the way, if you're going to the range, folks, and you don't have a plan to waste ammo, because that's what you're going to do. You're going to default to doing the things you like to do. You're not going to do the things you need to work on. Second thing is I'm going to come into the season hopefully lighter and leaner than I have in the past. Cleaning up the diet, Rich, cleaning up the drinking habits. You and I both enjoy bourbon and beer, and I'm really actively working on that at 50 years old now. I'm trying to be the best me I could possibly be. And having a good home defensive type strategy. Not that I think that's the only thing we need to think about, but I don't know what's coming in the future, man. From 2020 and 2021, we saw a lot of chaos. So I want to make sure that my family and I'm prepared for all of that stuff, or as prepared as I possibly can be. I don't know, man. That was a long-winded answer.
No, it's good. Got a couple questions come out of that.
Yeah.
Alan Kelly, our good friend, says, along with muscle strikes, what is your thoughts on contact shots?
So that's a great question, Alan. So one of the things that we see when we're doing some of the combatives training is students tend to default to shoving the muzzle of the handgun up to the person. So if you're teaching them a weapon retention technique, or the drag, drive, draw, which the close quarter, extreme close quarter technique to get the handgun into the fight, what oftentimes you see students do under a little bit of simulated stress is stick the muzzle up there for a contact shot. So here's the problem with a contact shot. Contact shot oftentimes may present the firearm too close to the person. So if I don't have to use a contact shot, I will tell my students and tell myself that I want to keep the gun in a position where I can protect it. If I'm sticking the gun up there to make contact, I can't protect it. So that's the one downside. Now, of course, some folks may say, well, maybe you have to use a contact shot because you can't aim the handgun any other manner, and there's a teammate or a family member in play, or your own body parts, and the only way to ensure you're not going to shoot yourself is to physically place the muzzle up to them and fire a shot. I mean, we had a guest on the podcast a while back that basically almost did a contact shot in a bathroom against a guy that had a hostage type situation. So there may be instances where a contact shot might be viable, but in most cases, folks, if you're training, you should probably train to keep your handgun or your muzzle in a position where you can protect it, which is not muzzle contact distance.
Yeah, I was watching a video put out by John Murphy. He'll be a guest coming up in January. And it was an amazing series of videos that taught different lessons. And one of them, Mike, was this guy does a great, I mean, it was a video I had not seen before. He does a great job of doing a front thrust kick on this guy. The guy goes to the ground, and as he's getting up, it gives him time to draw from the appendix. It was a beautiful draw. And then he fully presents the firearm to the guy as he's standing up, which he did not need to do. And of course, as the guy's getting up, he took the firearm right out of his hand, and now they're fighting for the firearm. Whereas he would have not tried that contact shot, kept the at close quarters position, he could have got off some shots and won that fight, but he lost that fight and got killed. And it's like everything he did up to the point where he presented it to full extension was beautiful. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Well, it's a weird habit, man. If you're listening or watching this right now, if you're doing your combatives training, you really need to work your distance considerations. That's, one of the things that I do. I do a one-day follow-on class where we talk about close quarter, extreme close quarter, as well as weapon retention. Then we do some one-handed manipulations. But one thing we do repetitively over and over and over again with red guns or simulated guns is distance. So I set two students up at 7 yards apart, and one has a handgun, one's the bad guy. And the student starts out with an extended shooting position. As the bad guy walks closer, they learn to compress the handgun to the close quarter position, then compress it even closer to the extreme close quarter position, and then use that, that palm strike or chest strike. We go into detail about that later to keep them back. And then the bad guy simulates and increases the distance. So then they go back to extending the handgun. When you're repetitively practicing something like that, it teaches your brain to react to the distance the person is. And I do it over and over and over again in that class, like for almost an entire hour, just to get them ingraining the habits of learning the distance the person is and what we should be doing with a handgun. Because Rich, you've seen it lots of times. I've seen it literally dozens, if not hundreds of times. Students that do exactly that. They do a combative technique and they take the handgun out or they get the handgun back and they shove it right back to the threat. That's not a smart move. And the only way not to do that is to make sure you practice not doing that,
Yeah, it's a training plan. I don't know if I want to call it a training scar, but if you've never worked to draw that, and one of the other videos that he showed, Mike, and I hate to keep going on about it, but it's so important. I hope everybody's hearing us this morning, is you got to train that way, because there was a female, she's walking down the road and this guy comes over a speed bump and you could see his car stop, and he gets out and he goes up to grab this woman. He approaches her very aggressively. She steps and kind of turns to get to draw on the guy. And as she's drawing, I'm thinking, oh man, she's too close. She got lucky and her movement caused the guy to kind of stumble. And she was able to draw, and you see her fire from this beautiful pectoral index position. It gets off a couple of shots and the guy goes down and bleeds out. I mean, it was just, and she was a former police officer. But it shows what a little bit of combatives and a good technique can do as juxtaposed against a bad technique.
Yeah, amen. Hey, folks, if you're on right now, if you would, I know there's 46 or 48 right now, like and share, and maybe get us in front of some new viewers on this beautiful New Year's Eve. I almost said Christmas Eve. Rich, and I want to add one more thing to that close quarter technique discussion is you have to practice those things. We always talk about, hey, a lot of people ask me in class, hey, Michael, what about this draw process where you draw, you come really high out of the holster, you go to that high pectoral position, then you drive the handgun up and out. And I'm always trying to get across to my students that that's slower. That draw is slower. So you may say, well, Mike, why are you not doing more of a combative, tactical ninja draw? Why are you drawing and straight lining the gun at the target? Because if I'm drawing the handgun, that makes the assumption that I'm at a distance where the draw is appropriate. And if I'm drawing the handgun, then what is important to me at that moment in time is the speed of the draw and getting the first round on target. That's what's important. That's what's going to solve the problem if I'm drawing the handgun and it's a shoot type situation. If I'm not far enough away though, or I haven't done the things necessary to draw the handgun, I'm not going to draw the handgun. But Rich, I talk about this in the first lecture in the defensive handgun class. Hey, you're gun centric. You're in a shooting class. So your brain automatically defaults to, I'm carrying a gun. I got to draw the gun, which in some cases is not the right solution. We need to buy the time, or like John Correa says, wait our turn, buy the time to draw the handgun. We can't be in that habit. It's a gun centric habit.
It is, man. And if you're watching folks this morning, and you're seeing people putting numbers up here, like Gerald says, number 952, Greg says number 2264, and you wonder what that is, man, you're going to have to check out the link and find out if becoming a coin member is the right thing for you. But it is gun centric, man. And somebody else says you got to earn that draw, whether that's a surreptitious draw when the bad guy's attention is off of you, or you earn it with distance, or you earn it by putting something in between you. I think that's a good way to look at it, instead of just, I'm going to draw the handgun.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Alan says there are a few videos talking about contact shots. I feel the advantage of time and distance are your friend, and train both close quarters and at distance.
Yeah, I agree with that, Alan. As a matter of fact, if you're listening and watching this right now, one of the things you should do is you should do practice drills that simulate exactly what you would want to do in real life. So if you're shooting really, really close range, practice shooting close range from a compressed position. If you want to shoot an extended two-handed position, then you should probably be practicing at a distance of 5 yards or more. But one of the things we did in that Century video series, and we've also, if you're a Quinn member, you have access to this, is I did a couple of videos on the movement offline and utilizing movement just to clear a threat, meaning getting offline so you could clear an innocent person in front of you and get an angle on a shot, and utilizing both left and right angles as well as high and low angles to be able to take a shot if the handgun's already out. Because that's one of the things we talk about, the close quarter position and the stiff arm. If the handgun's already out, then it's already out. It's already in play. So you have to have some techniques and understanding of how to defend it, because the good person out there, when you draw a handgun, if they're not truly intent on fighting you, maybe it's just an angry driver or whatever else, and for whatever reason you are legally authorized to draw your handgun, they're going to stand down. It's the true bad guy that's not going to be afraid of your handgun. And if you're listening to this right now and you don't know how to defend your handgun, man, shame on you. And if you say, I'll just shoot him, you may not be able to. It might happen too fast. Or, Rich, we talked about this in the last show as well. You may shoot him and it may not have effect. There's several good videos. There's one of a guy in a convenience store where a defensive, I think it's an instructor maybe, finally shoots the guy. This is weird, amped up dude that's chasing him around the store. He finally shoots him, and the guy basically laughs at him. He's like, so what, you shot me? It had effect later on, but don't expect that gun to work right away, No,
that's exactly right. And there's a really good officer involved shooting coming out of Louisville. I put this on the closed group yesterday where they go in, it's a domestic, and there's two officers, and the guy, it's an African-American suspect, and he takes his shirt off. It's like, look, y'all here to kill me. I'm taking my shirt off so you can see I'm completely unarmed. And they're like, well, where's your ID at? And he's like, well, it's right here. And he's looking through a pile of clothes on the nightstand, and in there's a gun. So they end up rolling around on the bed, and the one officer, they're fighting over the gun. So there's an entangled fight on the bed between the officer and the suspect, and the officer that's an entangled fight for the gun tells his partner, shoot. And the other officer does contact body shots. And I don't know why he does that, but he literally puts the muzzle against the guy's chest and starts firing. And you can see the stippling on the perpetrator's torso as the rounds are going off and burning him. And it's like, okay, it was a dark room. I get it. Maybe you wanted to make sure you were really touching that guy instead of your partner, Mike. I don't know what.
Yeah. Well, maybe, that's hard to second guess that one, man. That might be a good situation where contact shots might be appropriate. Well, I tell you, I want to say this. I don't want to talk the subject to death, but I do want to mention that most handgun owners that plan to defend themselves with a handgun and worry about their shooting skills. Like these are the folks that are probably watching or listening right now. You're the ones that actually practice, right? You practice as much as you can, which is not as much as me, but you actually put the effort in. I think a lot of times they assess their weakness as, firing and hitting shots, let's say at 25 yards. I just posted a bunch of cool videos on Instagram, some challenges like how fast can you draw and hit a plate 5 or 10 times at 25 yards. I think the reality is most people need to identify their weaknesses at that zero distance, the 0 to 3 yard contact range, meaning how do I actually shoot from those positions? How do I defend my handgun? How do I prevent someone from grabbing my handgun? How do I prevent someone from grabbing my handgun while I'm shooting and not shoot myself in the arm? Like I said, once again, we talked about that in the live stream last week. It was, I think, a really good show. If you get a chance, it's still, I think, on the Facebook page. Go back and watch that video.
Bruce has a question. Says, after the pandemic is over, are you guys going to be back to doing warrior camps?
Yeah, good question, Bruce. So to be honest with you, we canceled one because of the pandemic, and we did cancel an American Warrior Society camp because we just didn't have as many people in as we wanted to. But Rich and I are going to discuss that post show. We will have an announcement here in the next few days of whether or not there will be a warrior camp in 2022. And aside from anything else I know of, I think we are going to have one if Rich is up for it.
Always. Mike, you ran the United States Shooting Academy, as we talked about in your bio. You ran the firearms training portion of the Air Marshals training. You've been an instructor at FLETC. What makes a great instructor? And I also want to talk about that, but I also want to dig into having ran those things. What are a couple of leadership tips you might give to the folks watching this morning?
Well, so let me address the first one first. A good instructor, man. We actually talk about the traits of and let's say you could paint the picture of an excellent instructor, the best instructor in existence. Number one, he or she would have a high level of skill. I don't think that's arguable. I know that there are some instructors that don't do demos. I know there are some instructors and I know there's certainly a school of thought that, hey, the top fighters, the top golfers, the top whatever, they all have coaches that probably can't do the thing as well as the top fighters or golfers do. But a good instructor, and let's refine that into a firearms or combatives instructor, has to possess skill. Because if they possess a high level of skill, even though they may not be able to do it as good as every student, that to me tells me they have an understanding of the technical stuff behind it. If you don't have an understanding of the technical stuff behind what you're teaching, I don't think you could be a great instructor. I see people all of the time on YouTube and on Instagram in the firearms community teaching something that is wrong. And that instructor, had they taken just a little bit of time to have some instruction themselves or think the thing through, they would probably come to the realization that that's not exactly what I'm doing, or that's not exactly correct. So number one, you have to have a high level of skill, because that high level of skill will drive a high level of knowledge. You can't have that skill without exploring things and working at it. Number two, you have to be able to relay the information. When I started teaching full time for the Air Marshals, I had a high level of skill. I did not have the ability to relay the information. Luckily, I had some great mentors. Rich certainly has been a mentor of mine in terms of communication. I didn't have the greatest personality in terms of communicating. So I've learned and stolen a lot. And maybe that would be number three. A good instructor is a good thief. He or she is going to steal communication traits, personality traits from other humans that will allow them to be a better instructor. And last but not least, and there are a bunch of other traits we could talk about, but stick to the four primary ones. The last one is you have to love instructing. If you don't literally love it, you'll never be really good at it, because it's really, really hard if it's done right. A lot of folks get up and talk in front of a group. Talking in front of a group is not instructing. Instructing is a completely different thing. And if you're doing it right, it will exhaust you. Like at the end of the day, when Rich and I teach FIDC, or if I teach a firearms class, I'm literally exhausted because I've given everything to the students.
And Jesse says FIDC was an amazing class. I would like to attend it again in the future. Our good friend Jay Fujimoto out there in Hawaii is on. Says, good morning from Hawaii, gents. Happy New Year. Coin number 188. Alan Kelly says, I definitely want to attend one of your firearms instructor development classes. And Greg asks a good question. Greg says, how do you find a good instructor? I've been to several classes at my local ranges around Dallas, Fort Worth, and they seem to just fall short.
Yeah, Greg, I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. I think that, you start asking around maybe on social media and say, hey, who's taking a great class? And more importantly, here's the problem with a lot of students.
You may have to travel. Let's be honest.
You might have to travel. But the problem with a lot of students is they don't know what they don't know. So they may go to the class and let's say they have an instructor that's very likable. He's got a couple of cool war stories. He looks cool. He talks cool. He acts cool. He can shoot okay. It was a great guy. It was a great class. But you don't really know what you don't know. You don't know if he taught you the right things or not. You don't know if you just enjoyed the experience because he was a very personable person or if it was a great instructor because he was personable and had the technical knowledge to relate to you. So, man, I would, sorry, I keep bumping the camera, folks. I would get online. I would check on social media. I would talk to, I would talk to the instructor students. I think if maybe do a post on the Facebook. Hey, who are your top 5 instructors? Who do you think the top 5 instructors are that, if you, in this subject area, whatever subject area you're trying to learn, defensive rifle or defensive handgun,
Yeah, great point. So, ready for the lightning round, Mike?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. What is the trait you most despise in yourself?
Man, trait I most despise in myself. Probably, that's a great question, man. Probably it might be the trait I most despise and also most like, because I know it's driven me to higher levels, is my intensity and my inability to control both my temper and my mouth in the past. You don't see that online a lot. I don't do that online.
That's a fact.
But it's the truth, in relationships and times, my intensity drives a lot of things, and I love it because it drives me to high levels. But in the past, as a younger man, and I've certainly made mistakes and said and done things that were not nice to someone I love. So that's probably the thing I would despise most, because I'm a very passionate person. I really care about the people around me. So I think that would probably be the thing I most despise about myself. And maybe lack of discipline. If I do something, if I'm eating crappy food, or if I drink too much, or if I miss exercise, that's the second thing I despise. I feel like I'm failing at something if I'm not doing everything I need to do. And I know that's totally human, but that's why I hold myself to a high level that I don't always succeed at. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And one of the things that one of my kids recently, we were talking about shooting and training, and the subject of you come up. Like, it was almost, they didn't say this, but it was almost like, Dad, why is Mike a national world champion and you're not? I'm like, I'm not willing to make the sacrifices that you have to do to get to that level. Number one, I'm not naturally talented in that arena, and maybe you're not either, Mike, but you definitely put in the work to achieve that. And you have to know before you get into that, like, it's going to consume you, man. That is going to burn you, and it's going to cause you to burn your time, your resources, and maybe some relationships along the way, because you're going to be singularly focused on achieving that goal. Am I off base?
Nope, you're exactly right. It's a huge price to pay. It's a huge price. And if you're not willing to pay it, then you're not going to reach that level. My buddy Rob Latham says, we have spent lots of times at matches on drives. We shoot a half a day event, we go drive around or go to lunch and have chocolate malts or do whatever else. And he's talked about how his regrets and how he has missed every one of the graduations of every one of his kids, every one of them, and almost every birthday, because he was at a shooting match. And I think I'm better than Rob in the regards that I've been to more things and have been more connected to my family. But he'll directly tell you that, man, I've missed so much, and it's the price he was willing to pay to be the greatest shooter ever. By the way, before I forget to mention, Rich, just so you know, if you're watching, if you haven't seen the Bigger Circle video series, it's still on sale. December 31. I think DEC 31 is 31% off. Not to promote something on here. And some of our digital and membership programs are on sale as well. If you go to Shooting Performance, you can get those for one more day. That all expires tomorrow. So,
well, there you go. Yeah. Is there a trait that you most despise in others?
dishonesty.
Ooh,
Can't stand it. That's matter of fact, that's our one rule around the house here with our kids too. Is you could do anything, but if you tell us the truth, it will be less. Your punishment will be less severe than if you're lying. A liar. I can't stand a liar or a fake person. I think that's I don't know, just the lowest level of human.
I totally agree, man. There's just no need in it. If you're about to do something and you're like, man, I'm gonna have to lie about this later, then don't do it. It's simple as that.
Yeah.
What's
Or
your most,
don't answer. That's what I tell the kids. Hey, if you're going to lie, I would rather you just not answer. Just you could literally. I don't want to answer that, Dad. Okay. All right. So I'm right about what I asked you in that case, right?
yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. I'm quick to do that, you know. So what do you think? Like if a salesman calls, can you tell me about what you guys are doing? Absolutely not.
Yep.
None of your business. Eric says the bigger circle worth every penny.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. By the way, that's the first video series that Rob Latham has ever done, and he did it with me for whatever reason. I don't know, but it really is a great series. If you go to thebiggercircle.com, you'll like it. It's great stuff.
What was your most embarrassing moment?
Man, other than some stuff in childhood, we won't get in probably onto the show. Who knows? Maybe I wet my pants or something. Probably Top Shot. If you don't know, I was on a TV show called Top Shot. I was the chief operating officer of the U.S. Shooting Academy. The big fish, great shooter, mentored all my instructors, had a great reputation. This show called Top Shot comes around. And for those that know what Top Shot is now, back then you didn't have any idea what it was or what it was going to be. So there was no way to train for it or know it. And I got sucked into the lovely element of Hollywood, and I was the first person kicked off Top Shot. And there are a lot of variables there, and that was actually a really great thing. It was probably the best thing in my life. But it was also at that moment very embarrassing to be the big jefe and get beat and go home. And there's, maybe we'll talk about, we've never done that on a podcast. Maybe we can talk about Top Shot. I'm not sure if I could talk about some of you have to sign some legitimate disclosures when you go on a TV show like that. So I don't know if those are still in existence or not. And I'd have to find out. But
yeah. And let's see, you've been on Top Shot, you had Rapid Fire, you and Ian, and the Best Defense.
Well, I was on Top Shot, and then I was on a secondary show similar called Top Gun, where I did win against. I think I shot against the host of Top Shot. It was actually a good show. Did one or two episodes of that, and then did the Best Defense and Rapid Fire. Ian and I did Rapid Fire. If you haven't watched, by the way, if you're looking for a good show to watch, I think we did 2 or 3 seasons. Maybe it was 2 seasons of Rapid Fire. You can get it on, I think, the MOTV app. Rapid Fire is really a cool show. Once again, Rich, here's the deal. The Outdoor Channel. Sorry, man. Poo-poo on the Outdoor Channel. It was the single most popular show I think they had at that point in time. They had sponsors lining up for this show, and they canceled it. They actually canceled it right after one of the school shootings happened, and I get that. But, I think that's a foolish decision to make.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Kelly says, are you still shooting in 1903 Springfield like on Top Shot, Mike?
Yeah, I don't own a Springfield 1903. I will tell you this, though. In the short story of the version is when I got so on Top Shot, you basically have this shooting competition. In our competition, I had to shoot a Springfield 1903. Now, what I didn't know about Springfield 1903 that I know now is there's a battlefield sight system that basically when the sights are down, there's this battlefield notch, which is for quick acquisition. And I think the zero on that notch and using the front sight is maybe 480 yards or something. And then you flip the sight up and you use the peep sight to actually shoot accurate shots. Well, I didn't know anything about the peep sight or the sighting system, and we didn't get great instruction on the weapon itself. And so I was trying to hit a 100-yard target, or maybe it was a 100-yard target. And my spotter was failing as well. He failed me, and I failed the shooting portion and had no idea where I was hitting. So it was a miserable, miserable experience. I later went home after the show, got a Springfield 1903, went to 100 yards, set up an 8-inch plate in Tulsa wind conditions of probably 25 miles an hour, and repeatedly hit the plate. And I actually did a video of it and post. I'm like, I can actually shoot this gun. I can shoot a rifle. I meddled with the rifle in the Marine Corps. bronze, and it wasn't distinguished, but I medaled a couple times. So.
Well, I'll put a picture on the closed group later today of me shooting a 1903 Springfield and winning
Winner.
a military a military firearms match at Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Nice.
Okay, so describe yourself in 3 words, Mike.
Maybe intense, driven. I would say honest. I think I'm honest I'm honest as much as a human can be honest to a fault. Like when everybody says every human lies. So if I said I've never lied, then I'd be lying. So I think I'm honest to a fault to an extent. And believe it or not, Rich is probably going to lie. And caring. I'm actually more caring inside than I go on the outside. So
Caring. What was the last lie you told other than the fact that you're caring?
Last lie I told. I think I might have said something to you, Rich, about the last class. I think I might have said, "Great job, Rich." That was the last lie. Great job, Rich. You're doing a great job on the show today, man.
Like you said, everybody lies. Let's see here. What's the next question on the lightning round? What is the worst thing anyone has said to you?
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. Oh, maybe I had a mentor a long time ago, and in a group setting around other instructors, I said something smart aleck, and he shut me down. And later on, I think he said, "I'm really disappointed in you." Ooh. I was like, "Whoa, I can't believe this." And yeah, that was probably it.
You know, it hurts when it's coming from somebody that you really respect, you know?
Right.
When's the last time you changed your mind about something significant?
Oh man, that's a great question as well, Rich. You're hitting me with some stuff that I should have read this stuff last night, but I went to dinner with my wife. Last time I changed my mind about something, I'll give you one. I've seen some videos of the temple index position, right? And I thought it was the stupidest thing ever. I'm like, I don't think there's an application for this position, but there absolutely is. And I utilize this position in the vehicle tactics videos on AWS. We talk about being able to get the gun out of your holster and then clear and be able to shoot. You know, if you have a passenger that's not armed and you have to clear someone out of the way. So there might be a reason to use that temple index in and around a vehicle or in some close quarter situations. So that's something I changed my mind about.
I'll tell you another one you changed your mind about, or I think you changed your mind about. I remember you and I talking maybe a decade ago, and you're like the Beretta 92, you were kind of poo-pooing on it. And then, I think Bill Wilson made you start shooting it and you liked it, right?
Well, yeah. So the Beretta 92 series, of course, at the military house that has a safety or decocking lever that stays down because that's the way I think they requested it. Maybe I don't like that a lot, but in the original, Berettas they used to call it slide bite because the slides would break and they have, of course, come back and hit people in the face. But I've shot our Berettas now, the Wilson Combat varieties, 92G and the different models, hundreds, thousands of rounds, and I love them. They're fantastic guns. As a matter of fact, one conversation I had with Bill Wilson changed that. He's like, well, one of the reasons I love Beretta so much is because they're the single most reliable firearm he's ever found. And if I remember correctly, I don't think I've ever had a malfunction with my Beretta 92s made by Wilson Combat. Ever. I don't think I've ever had a malfunction.
No, I've had a 92G since 1995, 96. I could say the same thing. And, of course, I sent it off to Wilson Combat, and they tuned it up. But Matt says, great job, gentlemen. Let's see. What is the closest you come to death, bro?
We actually talked about this. I think maybe we didn't talk about this in the podcast. There was a circumstance one day where I gave a guy a ride that I shouldn't have given a ride to. I was training in Okinawan freestyle karate at Tommy Mossman's dojo. I went to a gas station to fill up, just a short story version. The clerk convinced me somehow to give this dude a ride home. His place was supposed to be a mile away. He gets in the car, start driving, and he eventually leads me to a road. And for whatever idiotic reason, I was too polite and too young to know to stop my car on a main highway and kick him out. And I ended up in the middle of a deep, dark backwoods road and pulled into an area where there were several trailers and there was a burn barrel with a fire lit inside of it, and 30 or 40 people that were certainly that looked like criminals, which I'm certain they were. And the guy jumped out of my car, took some cash from me, and another dude with a long trench coat got in the car. I'm pretty certain he was armed, although I never actually saw the gun, and tried to get me to take him to his buddy's house. Now, what you probably ask him, well, Mike Seeklander, why didn't you shoot him or fight? I couldn't fight at that point in time because my car was surrounded by people. I couldn't shoot him because I did have a gun in the car on the floorboard on the passenger side. So there's a hint for you. If you're going to have a gun in the car, have it in a place where you can get to it. Okay. And in that case, I would have been probably fighting in the car for the vehicle. But I survived by actually driving away when he pulled me up to this random shack in the middle of nowhere where I'm pretty certain he was going to shoot me in the face, and got out of there. So.
Yeah, and Gerald says it sounds like an episode from The Best Defense. It was an episode.
It is. Yeah, it was an episode. We did exactly that episode For the Best Defense based on my story.
Yeah, and the fact that your gun was in the floorboard of the passenger side where the bad guy was sitting is terrifying.
Absolutely. And, it was one of those deals. I just finished training. I had my gi pants on. I was sweaty. It's in my bag. I wasn't carrying on a regular basis. We didn't have concealed carry permits back then, by the way.
No.
But I did. I think it was a Smith & Wesson 645 or 4506 or something I was shooting a lot at that point in time in the bag, and I thought about it, couldn't get to it.
And just on that note, I put in this young girl, her name was Christy, and her dad was a former Marine. He had got out, a staff sergeant. And I asked him one day, I said, sir, why did you leave the Marine Corps as a staff sergeant? And he told me this story. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Mike has probably heard it before. He's graduates recruiter school, and he's driving from San Diego to his first duty station. He's got a snub nose 38 in the glove box, and he's driving across Arizona trying to stay awake. And he pulls over and lets this hitchhiker get in. He's like, I need somebody to talk to. I'm going to crash and kill myself. He said 45 minutes in the conversation, they're like old friends. It's just a great conversation. All of a sudden, the hitchhiker opens up the glove box, pulls out his gun, makes him get off the road, and then shoots him twice in the back. One round goes through the leg, and he ends up losing the leg. So when I met him, he had a prosthetic, and it ended his Marine Corps career, and the guy left him for dead. So there you go. Do not pick up hitchhikers.
Man, absolutely, positively. I mean, I've passed so many of them, and I've had kids in the car, and they're like, Dad, can't we? It's cold out. I'm like, not a chance, not on your life, man. Not a, I suppose, I mean, I have stopped to help people with broken down cars. I mean, they visually have a broken down car. They're stuck, they're not hitchhiking, but not going to do it. Don't do it. Watch The Best Defense. Watch that episode if you don't believe me.
Only got a couple more questions, and we're doing good on time, so I'll indulge this final one. When I was a little boy, I pick up one of my memoirs, Reader's Digest, and I just flip it open, and it's a story about a girl who was a hitchhiker, and the guy that picks her up in California takes her to a secluded location, takes out his chainsaw, and saws off her arms and legs and leaves her for dead. And somehow she survived it. It was about her story of courage and perseverance and recovery. And I'm just like, wait a minute, let me skip back to that. They cut off her arms and legs. Oh my God. And she somehow survived. That is just crazy. So again, don't do it.
Hey, Rich, I see a question I want to answer before you ask me the last couple. John asked about the Lombardi Trophy. I don't know which one he's looking at. I would assume it's maybe that one, John. If that's the one you're pointing at, that's the IDPA World Champion Trophy that I won a couple of years ago at the World Championship.
Sweet. Mike, what keeps you awake at night?
A dog next door that barks almost all night. Literally.
There you go.
That's what keeps me awake. They've since recently been putting this dog inside. I don't know if my neighbor would be ever watching these, but if you are, man, please. The dog still barks during the day, so naps are almost over. Rich, you know how important those are to me. So the dog and I are gonna have a talk pretty soon.
And how would you like to be remembered?
I tell you what, I would love a long time ago, instead of me setting a goal like I want to have 1,000 people on or 100,000 people on Instagram, I wanted to influence in a positive manner 1 million people over the course of my life in terms of being safer and better with their firearms. I mean, because that's what I do. You know, I'm a firearms instructor, but of course I also do combat. So I would love if I could make 1 million people better, safer, more confident, more able to defend themselves or do okay in a match, feel better about themselves because they learned something from me with the firearm. That would be my goal.
That's an interesting one. I was training Monday night, and there was a guy in the class. He's a grandmaster USPSA shooter. I'll tell you his name after the class. But my jiu-jitsu coach Cody has talked him into coming and start training. So he's a no stripe white belt. And I said, "Oh, you know, you're a GM. You probably know my business partner and best friend, Mike Seeklander." And he's like, "Oh yeah, Mike." And we got to talking about it. And I said, "Yeah, Mike trains jiu-jitsu. You know, he's a purple belt, probably be a brown belt soon." And he's like, "I had no idea about that about Mike."
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't realize the fact that it's not just shooting, it's combatives, it's edge weapons, it's the whole piece, right?
Yeah, it is. It is the whole piece, man. I sure hope someday I can earn my black belt. I can't. I'm going to get really, really, really serious because I train every week, as you know, Rich. I didn't train this week, but I train almost every week. But I think most people don't know that. Like I did an Instagram post the other day, and someone's like, "That's why he was an air marshal," and someone else like, "He was." I didn't know he was an air marshal instructor. But if I could get my jiu-jitsu black belt, I think I'd be one of the few people. I don't know of anybody else that would be a striking arts black belt, a jiu-jitsu black belt, a multi-division grandmaster in USPSA, and a distinguished master in IDPA. Because to be a distinguished master, you have to be in the top 1% or win a national championship. So I don't know of anybody else that would have that series of things. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point. Akin says, check one off. I know 100% of my skill have improved since I've been watching you. Eric says, Dave Ramsey would definitely say Mike has the heart of a teacher. And Gerald says, by teaching individuals and instructors, you have probably reached 1 million people. You know, what's interesting? We're like 28,000 downloads away from being downloaded over 2 million times. So
nice.
If you consider that fact. Walt says you were certainly a positive influence on me when we met at USSA in 2009.
Outstanding. Thank you, folks, for those comments. That was nice to hear. I love that.
Last question for you, Mike, is what is the most important lesson life has taught you?
Don't quit. That's it. I mean, that's, you know, my skill level with a handgun is very high. My skill level with a rifle and whatever else, in terms of competing, though, I'm not that talented. I'm more and more talented as I go through life and have more experiences. But to really perform well, you have to be talented. It's just like you could be really good at jiu-jitsu or striking, but I tell you, go compete, and you're going to find out if you're talented. Can you take your skill and then utilize that skill under pressure? So whatever you want to be good at, doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be shooting. Maybe you're watching or listening to this, or you just happened upon this show, and you're just interested in self-defense, and you want to be good at that. But whatever it is, don't quit. I would never, ever have reached the levels I have in all these areas, shooting specifically, had I quit when I didn't do well at a match. I mean, I tell you, that's the only reason I am where I am. I just didn't quit. I was just too dumb to quit, I guess. So that's it. Do not quit. 2 things. Don't quit and do the work. I tell you, Rich, I try to tell the kids here, man, if there's one thing I can give you, it's not technical knowledge. I want to teach you how to write an email list or build a website or do these things, to my son and daughter. It's like, just do the work. Just work. Just get up in the morning and work. Instead of getting up at 10, get up at 9 and work at something. Learn something. Work. So don't quit and do the work. And those are the lessons I've learned.
Oh, yeah, that's great. I've got a couple more minutes with Mike. So if you do have any final questions, please throw it up there. But I would tell you, just to echo what you said, perseverance in the face of adversity, man, just cannot be understated, especially today. You can take the world by storm if you're willing to go where others aren't and persevere in the face of adversity. I'll use my son as an example. He failed. He went up for promotion in Taekwondo when he was a kid, did not get promoted. His peers did. He goes up the next 3 or 4 months later. He doesn't get promoted again because his technique's just not where it needs to be. And Grant worked and worked and worked. I knew he was putting in the work, but he just did not have the awareness of his body or the athleticism to do the kata to get promoted. So finally he gets promoted. And when he does, they present him with something they had never done before, the Perseverance Award, and a beautiful framed plaque. They're like, dude, you always come out here with a smile on your face. You gave 100% every time. You did not quit. You didn't hang your head in shame. You kept training with your partners. And that's what life is about.
Yeah. Amen, man. I love it. Perseverance.
Yeah. Tony says, do you train your family and friends?
Yes, I do, Tony. So I probably don't actively train them as much as I should. Like Mike Seeklander doesn't load his family up in a vehicle and take them to the range and make them all shoot and do all these things. They all know how to shoot guns. My daughter's less so than my son, for example, because they have less interest. I'm going to start fixing that in January. I'm also actually one of the things I think everybody needs to recognize is you might not be the best instructor for your wife or your kids. You might be better off hiring an instructor that you vetted or know to train them, because they may listen to them in a different manner. So for example, with the girls, I'm going to try to convince them to either get back into jiu-jitsu or go to some private lessons, maybe find a good female instructor. My son is he's very confident. He doesn't shoot a lot. It's not really his thing, but he's surprisingly extremely skilled with both handgun and rifle, very, very safe. So yeah, that's about the extent of it. But I'm gonna step out of that box in 2022 and get some additional training. So,
great point, Mike. That concludes all the questions I had for the lightning round, brother. Anything else we need to talk about before we wish everybody a good New Year's Day?
No, not really, man. I just see a lot of great comments, about some of my answers, and thank you for watching. Thanks, of course, for Rich putting on the Coffee with Riches, and of course, the American Warrior Show for several years now. He's done the primary interviews for a lot of folks, so thank you to Rich for doing that. One maybe closing beyond some things, folks. I think I know you're watching on social media right now, right? Or listening on our podcast, I think that our attention span is getting shortened to the point where we're not paying attention to anything. I'm posting a bunch of tips on Instagram. If you're not following me there, go to Instagram and give me a follow. But I'm doing that because that's what people are responding to. But here's the deal. If you really want to be good at something, we're going to have to start expanding our attention span. We're going to have to start paying attention to long form content. We're going to have to start reading the entire article, finishing the entire book, watching the entire video. And hey, some of you lovely coin members, I'll point my finger at you. A lot of times we get on our Q&As and the question that is being asked is answered in a video that is in your members area. And trust me, I'm not poo-pooing on that and saying I'm perfect. I'm a member, for example, of the Hicks and Gracie's. He has a membership website. It's fantastic. It's really, really good. I'm a member, and I have probably not watched one of his videos for over a month now. It's not time; it's attention span. So that's my recommendation as we go into 2022. Increase your attention span. Pay attention to things. Let's stop letting social media and these quick serotonin boosts or whatever that we get from scrolling. Let's start changing that habit, folks. And that's my recommendation.
All right, man. I agree with it. There you go. There's your recommendation for success in 2022. Mike, anything you want the viewers of today's show to do otherwise? Anywhere they should go with that?
No, man. No. If you are interested in some of the material, all the digital programs, if you go to the primary website, Rich would probably have lists in the show notes. American Warrior Society Direct, of course. The Shooting Dash Performance. Also, if under Compete and under Defend, you can find the American Warrior Society. All of the standalone programs, if you're interested, all of the digital stuff is completely on sale. All of the memberships right now are on sale. Price increase will probably happen the first week of 2022. So if you're interested in consuming some long form content and you're seeing or hearing this later on, trust me, if you don't like it, we'll give you your money back 100%. And that's it. Other than that, just enjoy your year. Stay connected with humans on a human level. Try to influence as many kids as you can to get the phones out of their face and out of their ears, because I think that's Rich. That's the last thing I want to say is we need to start reconnecting on a human level. And we're not doing that. I don't know what our generation, the current generation of 13 to 16-year-olds are going to look like in 20 years. I hope they figure a way out of that. But right now, the only thing they know is their phones, right? So anyways, I see Bob Beal jumping on, by the way. Hi, Bob. Happy New Year. And hey, folks, have an incredible, Happy New Year. Be super safe tonight. Crazy night out there.
All right, guys, remember the fight is coming. Be ready.